Sunderland won 2-0 this weekend at Shrewsbury, going away from home with, I think it was 1,600 lads fans. And it was a poor performance, but a good win. Probably the best way to summarise it. To talk about it, we have two guests. One is Phil Smith from the Sunderland Echo. How was you?
Yeah, not bad, thank you.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Enjoy your weekend?
Yeah, I did. It was pleasingly uneventful.
Yeah.
It was quite nice to have a game where it didn't just all sort of kick off. Random red cards and daft goals and stuff. It was, as much as it was quite a flat game in a lot of ways, it was quite nice just to have a really dull, boring, clean sheet and win.
Fair play. Is that why you are so docile you didn't say hello to us at Weatherby Station?
I was going to shout over, but yeah, I just
didn't fancy really. It. Yeah, right. We're going to speak.
Don't take it personally. You know what I mean?
I didn't actually know until you told us. To be fair, so I just wanted to be difficult. Gav, how's you?
I'm fine, thank you. Yeah,
we went there the weekend, were you?
No, I was in Utah again.
Yeah, were you?
Watching it on the old iFollow.
Fair play. How was the stream? It's very up and down, the iFollow streams, aren't they?
No, it was a good stream this week.
Good one? Commentary?
Yeah. No commentary. I prefer it though.
Do you?
Yeah. You can hear the fans the whole time. It's a lot better.
Fair play.
Yeah.
We'll go straight to the game. So I'll do a brief sort of match report. Well, kind of a match report in the loosest of terms. Sunderland lined up. Formation, a bit, I don't know how you would say the lined up to begin with, because Madger and Sinclair seem to...
It's a bit of a 4-4-2, isn't it?
I would say 4-2-3-1 to me.
Yeah.
I don't actually think it's set. I think Jack Ross has explained this before, hasn't he? They're very fluid. So although they line up a certain way, depending if we've got the ball where we are on the pitch, things change. But for a lot of the time, Sinclair was the furthest forward of the strikers.
Yeah, it was a bit funny because at times it looked like almost Sinclair and Madger were like coming in off the wings themselves as well. I think
it's changed a bit in recent weeks, mainly since McGeady and Sinclair have come in, because I think before it was almost like a back three that was sometimes a back four, and I think now it's settled into a much more, the defence is a lot flatter. It's very definitely like a back four with Flanagan and Baldwin as his centre backs. But I think he's one of those managers really who, particularly the forward line, he encourages them to rotate and interchange, and I think at the moment, to be honest, they're probably not doing that as much as he would want. I think just because it's a thing that takes time to trust each other as players, so I think that's why sometimes it can be quite hard to work out what they're actually trying to play, and I think it's actually probably likely to get more difficult to work that out as it goes on, because I think they will get even more kind of fluid and interchangeable, particularly when players like Watmore come back, who are very similar, like Sinclair. They can operate out wide, they can go through the middle. So I think that's something we'll probably see more of rather than less in the coming weeks and months, I think.
The lineup, McLaughlin was in net, Matthews right back, Flanagan, Baldwin, centre back, Rhys James played at left back, McGeoch was in the middle with Cattermole, who was the captain. Can't remember when was the last time Cattermole was captain. I was trying to think about this the other day.
Wouldn't know. Nah. Didn't he earlier in the season someone tried to give him the armband for whatever reason, he didn't want to wear it.
Oh,
that's the last time I remember him being mentioned as captain.
I don't know.
He must have done it at some point last year.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I
just couldn't remember. I was trying to think. I was like, can it be better when Steve?
He must be fourth or fifth in the line then, in that sense, because Powers wore it.
He's wore it.
Wore it. Power wore it, didn't he, for a bit?
Yeah.
Obviously, Honeyman's first choice. I don't know who vice captain is. Is it Glenn Louvens?
I don't think they have a vice captain as such, to be honest. Well, in fact, they definitely don't have an official vice captain. I think we'll probably see more of it now. I think at the start of the season, I think Jack Ross has spoken a little bit about how he wanted to almost free Cattermole that responsibility and just let him play. Because I think Cattermole, to be honest, is going to be kind of a captain, whether he's got the armband or not. He's just that kind of personality. But now, the way things have changed in the recent weeks and the way he's playing and stuff, I think it was obvious for him to take it. And to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if from now on he started to take it whenever Honeyman didn't play, because it's obvious the way he plays, the way he carries himself, and how important he's become to the squad now. He is the vice captain, I think, even if not in title. So I think it's probably something we'll see a bit more
of. Maguire, McGeady, Sinclair, Madger, is that kind of front four? I said it was a bit quite interchangeable. First half was really poor, like probably the worst 45 minutes I think I've seen. In terms of just a spectacle, it was just horrendous. Nothing really happened.
It was one of those, I don't know, it was one of those where, yes, I don't think we played particularly well. But at the same time, we still had two really good chances to take the lead. There was that one when it fell to Madger and he just couldn't get his feet right and get a shot away. what was the other one? I do remember us having 2 really good chances in the first
Cattermole.
half. Yes.
Volleyed it over.
Yes, yeah.
Probably should have done better with that.
Yeah. So although we didn't play particularly well, and Shrewsbury came close, they hit the bar.
The guy fired over, but I think he might be offside.
There was a header about 5 minutes in as well. I think it was Anthony Grant. Beckles, sorry. Yeah.
What star scorer of the day.
Yeah. So it was, although it was a poor half, I thought both teams had the chance, to go ahead and didn't. It was pretty obvious at half time what needed to change, and what was pleasing was that obviously Ross, yet again, for probably the 10th time this season, made the right decisions when we needed them to, and it turned the game on its head. And although it was a fairly dull, uneventful game, things could have went differently. They didn't, thankfully, because as we're finding nearly every week in this league, just a lot of the teams aren't good enough to take the chances, whereas we're used to playing Premier League teams that don't need that many chances to score, and Shrewsbury were the epitome of that in terms of a League One team who just can't take the chances. I mean, our Thursday podcast, which went out obviously last week with the Shrewsbury fan, he said they just can't score goals, they're hopeless, and that gave me a lot of confidence going. The game was saw it in the game that they weren't potent enough when they were given chances, and that's when we will pick up these wins against the poorer teams, because we've got players who can put it away.
Back to the game itself. Second half was still more the same until the change were made. Gooch came on for Madja and Honeyman came on for McGeady. Gooch, good work down the right. Good work from McGeorg, actually. Give him a bit of praise, because that pass he did back to Gooch was what made the space. Played a ball in, and do you know what? It was a good ball, and they deserved a bit of luck for how good that little bit of play was. It was, a ball that had to be defended, and the guy was unlucky in putting it in his own net.
I think, to be honest, you look at Beckles, obviously he sliced his clearance, and I think that's just what pressure does, because in the first half, actually, if you watched, because of the way some of them were playing, Maguire was sort of drifting in from the right, and that's worked really well in some games, didn't work so well on Saturday. Beckles was really comfortable, and actually he was one of the Shrewsbury players who was having it was a nice afternoon for him. He was getting forward a little bit, he was able to put some crosses in on the overlap. Gooch comes on, and all of a sudden he's getting chased back down to his own corner flag. He's slicing the ball out, giving a throw in away. You can just tell mentally he was under so much pressure, and that's what happens when you put players, with the greatest respect, not that much ability. If you put them under pressure, they'll make errors. And I think his own goal was a little bit of a consequence of that. He was a player who felt under pressure in the game, and that was credit to Gooch, because he just ran his socks off. We all know how good he is in terms of he can beat a man, but that was just someone coming on and just getting in the opposition's faces and pushing them backwards, and you could see the panic in the Shrewsbury defence. All of a sudden they didn't know whether to press the runner, they didn't know whether they had to drop in, and I think the goal, it was a slice of luck, he's kicked it in his own net, but there was a reason why he did that, I think, and that was, Gooch, I think, takes the credit, not just for the cross, but what he'd done in the 10 minutes before that. Yeah.
After that, defended it, looked comfortable, to be honest. There wasn't really, I think they maybe had one header, half chance header, that went wide. I don't know, that's my memory serving us wrong, but I'd never felt under threat. I always thought Sunderland were going to win once they had the lead, and then Luke O'Nien scored his first goal for the club with a really good strike, and that's what we saw from him on them YouTube videos back in the day when we signed him from Wickham. That kind of finish, that on the edge of the box, just inside the box, and just a clinical strike into the bottom corner.
It was a lovely goal. The pass from Gooch is very underrated. If you look at the way it's just nicely balanced, nicely poised, and O'Nien's finish is great. The keeper didn't stand a chance, and I don't think there's a single person watched that game, Sunderland fan anyways, who just can't feel anything but joy for Luke O'Nien, because he hasn't featured enough this season. He hasn't featured much. When he has, he's been very underwhelming. So it was nice to see him take a chance like that, because I think everybody wants to see him do well. He's so, his personality's so infectious. Everything we heard about him before he come through the door was that he was, ready to make the step up. And I guess we've seen he hasn't been. He's been eased into it. And I would like to see him. I would like to see that continue. Just see him eased in. And it was a perfect time to bring him on, to be fair. I think we needed just people to run around and create pressure, basically, and that's what he did. Him and Honeyman in particular in the middle.
I thought Maguire as well did a good job of it.
Yeah, just putting them under pressure when they were trying to play, and it worked. It worked fantastically.
It was a really good sub from Ross. Obviously, Shrewsbury had gone to 3 at the back just before then, and obviously brought Sinclair off, and you're looking at it thinking, oh, it was an odd sub in the sense that you might think you might want your centre forward to hold the ball and sort of gather long balls out from the defence, but obviously Ross saw it really differently, and he brought on players who would actually run at the defence, and Shrewsbury, having just gone through a little change themselves to a back 3, you could tell straight away they didn't know who was meant to be picking up who. And if you watch that 09 goal back, it's really obvious that 2 or 3 defenders get in really bad positions because they're not sure who they should be picking up. So it was a really clever sub, and it was just nice to see 09 play and do what we heard Luke 09 can do in terms of box-to-box midfield, a good strike on him, because Jack Ross has kind of alluded to this. I think when he came in, I don't know, because of the style of football Sunderland were playing, because of the other midfielders, because of the size of the club, I think he maybe felt he had to change a little bit and become something a little bit different. And you saw that in even the little brief sub cameos he had. He was almost trying to play in a way that you didn't feel felt natural to him. Whereas Saturday he came straight on. It was just all about pressing, making runs. And the finishing is something which he works a lot on. I know he does a lot of extra sessions. He gets the young goalkeepers out and works on the shooting really, really hard. So it's actually a big part of his game, scoring goals, I think. So it was nice to see him, because you see how naturally he took it. He didn't hesitate for a second. It was really instinctive. So it's a big plus. I think you look at it now, pretty much every summer signing at some point now has made a big contribution to a positive result. And when you consider previous seasons, I mean, that's a big thing.
First thing really I want to dive into with the overall game was who was the man of the match?
Well, I think I gave man of the match to Gooch.
Same. Yeah,
I think in terms of the overall 90 minutes, I think probably Reece James or Tom Flanagan.
Yeah, I thought Flanagan had a
I would say Flanagan, yeah.
I've been really impressed with Reece James, just because I kind of had him down as kind of another Oviedo, a bit loose at the back but quite good going forward. But actually he's been really, really steady defensively. He's dealt really well, good in the air, good tackler. I think he looks really, really good.
I would say he's actually better defensively than he is offensively, I think. And that helps us a lot when you've got players like McGeady and Maguire. I'm not saying they don't work hard, but it's good to have that solidity behind them. And even if you look onto the other side, I would say Adam Matthews, the good that he did last season was a lot of the time going forward, and I think we're seeing under Ross that he isn't going forward as much. He's sitting back. But
there's been certain games where he's had a lot of joy, like that Peterborough game.
Well, I think
the game was running through.
I think to a large extent it's the difference between playing at home and playing away, because Saturday, it's one of those things that doesn't always get noticed, but Saturday was such a small, narrow pitch.
It did, wasn't it? Yeah,
such a narrow pitch, so little space. At the Stadium of Light, it's great for players like Adam Matthews because the overlap's always on. There's always space, so you can always get forward. And it's quite good to see that he, in League One, going away from home, he is reining himself in. You can see that, and Sunderland are slightly changing the way that they play to grind out results away from home. And I think the fullbacks being a bit less attacking is a big part of that. I suspect on Saturday we'll see a completely different Adam Matthews. I think he'll be trying to get on the overlap all the time and get those crosses in, and that's what you've got to do.
How important was the clean sheet? Second, I think, of the season. So.
Massive, because it was a settled defence for once. I don't know how many games now, league games anyways, we've played that back four.
We're playing the same back four at Bradford, I think. Yeah. So
it's going to be good to see that.
Actually, what did we play against Peterborough?
Oviedo started that game, then he got sent off. So it's going to, obviously tomorrow night, or whenever people are listening to this tonight, we're going to see probably the same defence, because Jack Ross said today he had no new injury concerns, so that'll be the third game in a row where we've picked the same back four, or back five even, and obviously clean sheet in the last game, great. We've been waiting for God knows how long for that, and I'm sure John McLaughlin has too. He's probably, for me, been one of the better players this season.
I think he arguably, apart from maybe Magi, he's probably been the most consistent player.
But it must be so frustrating for him to not come away with as many clean sheets as he probably has deserved. He definitely deserved that at the weekend. Every corner which came in the box, he was straight out to win it. Didn't do anything wrong really. So going into the next game, it's going to be good to have a settled back five, because you can't understate how important that is, and it's not been Jack Ross's fault. He hasn't made changes because he wanted to. He's had to, because Louvens has been injured, then Oviedo's been suspended or injured. Matthews in and out of the team. Yeah, I mean, the only consistent player really has been Baldwin. But now we do have a chance to keep that together. And I would like to think that that back four is probably the one he's got in mind for the rest of or at least until January.
He liked playing that three, though. I mean, when we played against Coventry, he set it up with the three, didn't he? So it'd be interesting.
I just
to see if he goes back there when he comes back.
I think it will be interesting to see how it develops, but that always felt. I think there's a big difference now that you've got McGeady back, because then it's easy to play with two wingers, which I think makes it a lot easier to play a settled back four. I still think that kind of lopsided 3-5-2 or whatever, I think that was a little bit of a horses for courses thing. I think the last few weeks we started to see a little bit of continuity in the shape. Obviously players have got a bit of freedom within that shape, but it's been pretty similar since the Peterborough game now, and I think that's how we played at St Mirren, a very similar way, a very similar system. So I think that's probably the shape of how it'll go going forward, and definitely that, to me, that back five at the moment looks about where you'd expect it to be for the rest of the season, I think.
Don't get us wrong, I like Lyndon Gooch playing that wing back role, and I did quite like that system, but I just think a back four is a lot.
It's a potential plan B, though, isn't it? Which is
it's great. It's great to have more than one plan, of course, but I just think we look a lot better with a more.
The other thing about that was as well is that you played that kind of lopsided back three at a time when right back was a massive problem area because Matthews wasn't really fit. Donald Love was struggling a bit. So there wasn't really anybody putting their hand up. Whereas now Matthews is really, really consistent. So I don't think you have to worry about that position as much.
Fair play. Yeah, I pretty much agree there. I think Matthews, I've rated the most improved player over the last few weeks. And
yeah, I would. Considering that I thought for a spell he was really poor.
He was poor against Coventry. It was his fault for the goal at Coventry. He just totally switched off. Since then he's been solid.
I think when he was asked to play as that third centre half, he struggled a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It never makes sense to play a right back.
So now he's playing more like a conventional right back. Yeah, he looks a lot better. I would agree with that actually. Yeah, can't think of a player who's improved more over the last 3 or 4 games.
Yeah. Good hot take.
The thing is with Adam Matthews though, he's never played this low down before, and he's probably had to do a lot of adjusting as well. You know, I know I'm not trying to say that he's a big shot in that squad because he isn't, but he has, played in the Champions League. He came here when we were in the Premier League, and it takes a lot of adjusting mentally to accept I'm a third division player, and this is the situation that we're in. And he's not the only one who's had to go through that, but he has improved a lot.
Yeah, I think I want to talk a little bit about game management. One of them key phrases managers like to use, but I think Jack Ross. His game management at the weekend was spot on. I thought at half time, considering we'd been so poor, I was like, Shrewsbury have only got 60 minutes. Like I couldn't see how Shrewsbury could have really played any better or with the same intensity as they did in the first half. And I knew once we made changes, and I think Ross sort of alluded to this in his post-match interview where he said that the players who came off were just as important because they wore down the opposition. And I think the fact that they made the 2 subs nigh on 55 minutes, Gooch and Honeyman, it gave with that like little bit of, I don't know, nitrous or something in Ross, isn't it? It just got we over the line. I think you've got to give Ross credit for that management of the game and his substitutions.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, particularly because it seems obvious in hindsight now to put Gooch and Honeyman on, particularly the way Gooch has played the season. But actually, I think a lot of managers would have looked at it and gone, "Oh, Madge, he's not at his best, but he's got 9 goals this season, so I'm just going to stick with him for a bit longer." McGeady hadn't done much in the game, but there was more than one occasion where he just turned it on and just kind of beat 3 people. So it would have been really easy to say, "Oh, you know what? I still think they could produce something." But he knew what they needed, and that was he needed to put more pressure on Shrewsbury in defence because they had too much time on the ball, and he knew they needed to be a little bit more direct in the way they moved the ball. And Gooch and Honeyman were absolutely perfect for that role. So I thought they were slightly bolder substitutions than they might have looked at face value.
I think if we'd drawn that game 0-0 or maybe got beat and he took Madge off on 55 minutes, I think the fans would have been really, really annoyed at Jack Ross. So that shows how bold that sub was. You take your top scorer off when it's 0-0 and you need a goal.
Well, if you hadn't won the game, people would be going, "Well, you haven't won the game and you've taken McGeady off for Honeyman."
I know.
So that's what I mean. When you actually think about it, they were pretty brave subs to make, but they were spot on tactically.
Well, when you think about it, it's not as though we were making wave after wave of attack, was it? It was quite clear that we were lacking creatively. It wasn't Madja's fault necessarily, but if you're going to go with a 5 across the middle, I guess as opposed to the 2 sitting. We did end up moving into the 5. It probably makes more sense to have someone like Sinclair up front who's going to cause a bit more problems physically. And it pushed us 10 yards further up the pitch having those 2 players on, I felt, because we just weren't placing enough pressure on Shrewsbury end of. And it was pretty obvious that with a bit more pace on the pitch, we were going to, it was going to push us up the pitch, and it did. I think I noticed after probably 20 minutes or so, Shrewsbury were putting that much pressure on us that it just wasn't sustainable, and eventually something was going to give. Obviously, we got a bit of fortune in the end. It was through an own goal, but I just think it was inevitable that they were going to fold eventually. And thankfully, we've got players on the bench. Even when we've got injuries, we do have a bit of quality on the bench, which other teams don't have, and that's what saw us through in the end. It was fantastic from the manager to recognise the issue, and it was good to see George Honeyman play well, because he does come in for a bit of stick, and his couple of performances a bit well. Yeah, I think he came on and he'd done a great job. We needed somebody to just be that link between attack and midfield, and he was, but he was also quite ratty off the ball.
Yeah,
I think he's been brilliant in the last 2 games. I thought his combination at Bradford, his combination of kind of intelligence in the way he bought free kicks and the way he killed time and just the sheer energy, I thought he was absolutely superb. And I think, fair play to him, because he does get a fair bit of stick, and also it's not an easy thing when you have the high starting the season, you get the armband and you probably think, well, that's me in the team, fantastic. And then all of a sudden you're getting dropped out of the team and people are talking about you a bit more. Let's not forget, this is still a guy only in his 2nd full season as a footballer. It's George Honeyman feels like he's been around for ages, so you kind of see him as this senior statesman, which of course he's not. But his response has been absolutely fantastic, and it must have just been an absolute nightmare. The last 15-20 minutes for those Shrewsbury defenders who were tiring, and suddenly they've got Luke O'Nien and George Honeyman just absolutely all over them like a rash whenever they get the ball. It's vital, and I think in this league, obviously the trend in the modern game is towards pressing, but I think it's even more effective in League One, and we've actually seen Sunderland be on the other receiving end of that, because defenders aren't great on the ball.
No.
So if you put pressure on them, you're going to force errors, and that's what Gooch and Honeyman did. They started to force a lot of errors from the Shrewsbury team that weren't there before, just because they put them under pressure.
I wonder as well how much of that comes down to fitness, because I don't know whether we just seem a little bit fitter than a lot of the teams we're playing.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, later we seem to come to life later in games where they don't.
But if you've got a lot of our squad has played, pretty much championship level, most of them. They are going to naturally be, better athletes. They are going to have that little bit extra than. These players as well. Like Shrewsbury played probably 1 notch up what they normally played. You could tell after the first 5 minutes where we were quite good. After that, the first half they were running themselves into the ground, and that's where they lost the game. Really, it's like these teams just. They don't manage the games properly because they're just trying to get a goal to get ahead of where, and then if they don't, they're screwed. It's like one plan and that's it.
Yeah. It just seems fairly obvious to me that we've got the edge over a lot of these teams. It's going to be interesting to see how we fare against Doncaster, who are one of the better teams in the league.
Although into my preview there, Gav, come on.
Yeah. But
we're talking about this game.
It's just more so the better teams. I think Peterborough matched us. Man for man, they were probably.
I don't know. Peterborough I thought Peterborough were shocking in the. Well, we should have been 3-0 against Peterborough.
I thought they battered Peterborough.
More so the second half when they made the
to be honest, though, even at the start of the second half, that was just a natural thing that was going to happen. Peterborough were always going to come out after a bit of a rollicking from Steve Evans, but I thought Sunderland managed that period pretty well, and were then getting back on top, and then Oviedo.
I'm talking more so about the effort levels and the and the fitness. I just think there's a reason there's a gap starting to form in that top 6 or 7 to the rest. I just think there's teams with more professionalism, superior fitness levels,
better facilities as well. By the way,
that's
one of the things that maybe when we talk about Sunderland's like financial advantage, it's always in terms of wages and transfer fees, whatever. But actually, you would hope that the Academy Light and the facilities that Sunderland have in terms of recovery, and you would hope that would make a big difference at this level. And
it should do,
and hopefully we are starting to see signs of that.
And as the season progresses, that's going to come more into play, I think.
Especially over Christmas and that type of thing.
Absolutely.
You would hope that's when Sunderland should really start to find it a bit easier.
Well, I know I'm sure Bradford City train at a school. Like, that's their training.
A lot of teams in this league probably do, yeah. Or they use like local colleges and what have you.
You know, and that's...
And all-weather pitches rather than being out on the grass.
I bet there's only a few with proper training grounds. There'll be the likes of Portsmouth and stuff probably do, but other than that,
oh yeah,
there won't be many that actually do have proper facilities.
They're at St George's Park, aren't they?
Yeah,
but other than maybe a handful of teams, yeah, you're probably right. And it does play into, especially when you're playing 3 games in a week. I mean, how much does recovery come into it? Especially, we've got 2 away games. I know Doncaster's fairly close, but in terms of recovery, we've probably got a better handle on it than a lot of teams do.
I'm surprised that we're going up tomorrow to Doncaster. I thought they would have went up today.
Up, down, you mean?
Down, whatever. Change your perspective.
It's only a 2-hour drive, isn't it? So they can come in the morning and do the preparation and then drive down the afternoon.
I've thought they would have stayed over. I don't know.
It's probably easier for them to do all of that, because you think they've probably had Sunday off, back in Monday for recovery training today, for obviously doing their recovery and their training today. So tomorrow they'll probably do a light session in the morning and then drive down after lunch maybe. So it's probably it's just handy the way it's all worked out. Doncaster's not that far away.
I want to talk a little bit quickly, just Cattermole, captain, how did he do? And that was a silly booking in the first half, but he seems to be playing well when he gets booked, so I think maybe he did it on purpose.
I think he does exceptionally well. I've never seen anyone play so well on a yellow card.
He's got used to it over the years, hasn't he?
I suppose it could be an experience thing, yeah, but it's bizarre. He's almost he seems to make more challenges on a yellow card than he does off it. But he just seems to have so much control these days about the way he does it. It was bizarre, the first challenge, just because there seemed to be very little pressure on. But I think sometimes he just likes to make his mark early in the game. But you know, the thing about Cattermole is, and we saw it at Bradford again in the latter stages of the game when we talk about game management. Cattermole's vital, and he's really important as well. If you actually watch the game, when Jack Ross makes changes in the game in terms of substitutions, changes systems, it's always Cattermole is the first person he speaks to, and he's the person who relays the messages onto the pitch. So I think, like I said, I think it was a natural thing for him to get the armband, and I think he'll do it again in the future, to be honest.
And I just want to, finally, the main point for the game, McGeoch talked about him being good for the goal, but in general still doesn't look like the player I think we were expecting.
I think, I have to admit, I thought, I was really, really surprised by some of the things I read about McGeoch after the game, because I understand, I think there is a lot more to come from him. I think he still is playing a little bit safety first on the ball in a way we didn't see from pre-season. But I honestly thought he was one of, if not Sunderland's best player in the first half. I thought his positioning was absolutely excellent, and I thought Sunderland went through a few phases in that first half where they were really, really struggling. And McGeoch's intelligence around the box in terms of where he was positioning himself, the way he was breaking plays up.
Got a few good blocks.
I thought it was really, really good. I thought his positioning was excellent. I thought defensively he was really, really valuable. And then when Sunderland got that kind of wind when Gooch came on, I thought he was quite good on the ball. Yeah. I don't think he's at his best, and I think he certainly could be a little bit braver on the ball. But in the first half, I thought he was exactly the player Sunderland needed him to be, and that's what you need your midfielders to do. You need them to be intelligent and to assess the game.
I think he's probably suffering a little bit from the fact we've had some strong midfield performances this season individually.
Power has looked really good.
So Power and Cattermole in particular have looked very good individually in games, whereas McGeoch hasn't had that standout man of the match performance yet. But the problem is like Phil says, he's very undervalued defensively, I think. People probably don't realise, and it's, unless you're actually at a game as well, it's quite difficult to see that unless you've got the full picture in front of you and you can see the pitch. But he does quite a lot of good work off the ball in terms of structure. I mean, I wouldn't underestimate how important he was to the clean sheet, because the defence do need that shield, and with Cattermole's role changing the older he gets, he can't play that position anymore where he used to, where he would have been the man sat in front of the defence quite deep. He hasn't got the legs to do that anymore. He's been freed up to do a different role, and that's why to get the best out of Lee Cattermole, you probably need a player like McGeoch alongside him, who's just that shield, who, when they get the ball, they do the very simple stuff, and it's not very glamorous, and he's not going to get into many highlight reels with his all-round performance in a game, but he's an effective player, and we need players like that. You can't underestimate the role of somebody like that, particularly away from home, where you need to be a little bit more cautious. I don't mind that. I don't mind that at all. I think it's understated.
He's Gus Poyet's dream, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's the dream Gus Poyet midfielder. No, like I say, I understand what you're saying, and definitely he's not as decisive on the ball in terms of the build-up plays he was in pre-season.
He's safe.
He is safe, but
that's not
sometimes that's okay. Sometimes it's not, and I think he can get better. But I did actually. I wanted to make that point. I thought it was worth dwelling. I thought defensively his positioning was really good on Saturday and really important. And I think that side of the game, probably, I don't think he's got the credit he deserved for that.
Well, you look at Hibbs last season, where he was obviously the player of the year. Alongside him was McGinn, who's now went to Villa and looks a really good player. But you've got to think the players alongside the likes of McGeoch, they always look a little bit better than you would think. And it's because they have somebody doing all of the not so nice work, which is what he does, just picking the ball up in front of the defence.
Positional play, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and it frees up the players alongside them to be a bit more expressive and be a bit more creative, which is what Cattermole this season you've seen playing in a team who are winning and playing attacking football. You've seen that from Cattermole this season, where he's now able to get forward and do some of the stuff he hasn't been able to do in the past, because he was that man. He was the link man. And I think as the season goes on, and if he can stay fit, that's a big thing with McGeoch, because over his career, certainly not the last couple of years, but over his career he's struggled with fitness, and he has, to be fair, since he come here, struggled a little bit with fitness. If he can stay fit, then he'll play every week in this team, and it's because Jack Ross recognises that he needs someone doing that job. You can't just have your central midfield players bombing forward and shooting all the time. You do occasionally, and especially away from home, you need somebody who's just switched on defensively and just wants to sit there and I know some people hate the phrase, but recycle possession, and that's what he does a lot of.
Yeah.
When we're under pressure, the ball goes to McGeoch and he might just play a simple 5-yard pass, but that's what you need sometimes.
Got a few questions. Are we all done with the game on Saturday?
Just on Cattermole with the armband. Before we switch off, I think although Honeyman's the captain, yes, but when he's not on the pitch, we need somebody to step up and although whenever he is on the pitch, yes, he acts like a captain, but let's not forget just how experienced he is, and whether he's wearing it or not, he's still a captain on the pitch, isn't he?
A leader, many leaders, around the team.
So I would like to think that people recognise that, rather than thinking, is he going to be is he wearing the armband? It doesn't matter if he's got an armband on or not, does it?
No.
Let's be honest.
He still picks up that booking. We've got some questions here, some for Phil, some just in general. So first one is for Phil. It's from Graham Field, and he asks, what are the thoughts of the journalists that you speak to who cover other League One clubs, and what do they say about someone's chances of promotion?
I think it's a bit varied, to be honest, because I think I know certainly a few of the people I spoke to at Shrewsbury weren't really that impressed with Sunderland, but then they probably don't have that understanding of why, in a weird way, that was actually a really reassuring performance for us. So I can see they would have looked at that and thought, I'm not actually that impressed with them. But for us, that's actually a positive, because we're not used to seeing them put in that kind of performance. I think from some of the other journalists I've spoken to, one of the things that I've heard a few times is quite a few people have seen Barnsley in the flesh and been really, really impressed. I think most people have seemed to, and not just journalists, actually just people I speak to in the game, most people see Barnsley as the best team in the league. Now, obviously, they've had quite a few poor results, so they haven't found much consistency. But from what I hear and what people say, I'm still expecting them at some point to have a really, really, really strong run where they put some teams away quite emphatically, because the reports about them are really, really good. And actually, you only have to look at their squad to see that, because it's pretty much the same squad who gave Sunderland a few turning overs in last year. So I think, by and large, other journalists, so to speak, have occasionally been a bit underwhelmed with Sunderland, but that certainly not something I worry about in a way. I actually think that's...
We as fans have been a bit underwhelmed. I mean, we've sat here and, we're talking about the game of the weekend. It was, in some ways, underwhelming.
Stats don't lie, though, do they? We've only lost one game this season. Yep. We don't concede many goals.
Well, we've got the fourth best defence, I think.
It's crazy when you think about it.
Considering we've only got 2 clean sheets.
How many of those goals you think, and you go, God.
It's always just one silly goal, though, in most games. I mean, we've only conceded 2 goals a couple of times, haven't we?
Yeah. I watched Barnsley the other week. They played Luton on the TV, and yeah, they look brilliant. But then you look at the result at the weekend. They've had a couple of bad results like that, and you just think, yeah, it's all right looking good in patches, but if you can't manage, if you can't look at some of the results we've picked up, you think about it and you look at it and you go, that's not a bad result in hindsight. Like if we'd drawn yesterday, which for a lot of the game we looked like doing, wouldn't have been a terrible result, because then you look at some of the teams who went to Shrewsbury this season and haven't picked up results. Doncaster haven't. Don't think Accrington, Walsall, teams who were up there with us, have actually struggled at Shrewsbury. They had the best home record in the league up until Saturday. Yeah, only conceded 4 goals all season at home. So they might not think much of Sunderland, but then you look at the results other teams are picking up against these teams, and then you understand actually we did a good job on Saturday. We went and we frustrated them for an hour, although they had chances. We frustrated them for an hour or so, and then when the time was there to pick them off, we did. And yeah, if we do that over the 40 odd games more often than not, we're gonna end up top of the table in my eyes, because you look at Portsmouth, even have had some indifferent results, even though they seem to be running away with it a little bit.
I think Portsmouth have got 6 points on us.
Yeah, I think we're drawn games,
but we've got a game in hand,
but,
so that'll be interesting.
It's far too early to be.
I think there's going to be. I think Peterborough will drop off. Like I don't rate them.
I think Peterborough will drop off more than anything. I think it's really hard for a manager like that to keep a squad united. And
he's done it before, though. I mean, he has earned promotions.
Really?
Rotherham took Rotherham to the Championship.
Did he?
Yeah.
To me, they just look like a bit of a ticking bomb. To be honest, I'd be really surprised if they do it over a 46 game period.
Well, some of those characters, Cummins and Madison, aren't famed for their good attitudes, are they? You've got to keep players like that happy every week.
Like I say, I think Barnsley will do well. I do like the look of Portsmouth. Just you look at the manager and he's just been there and done that. You keep looking at the results. They're the team who you keep looking and, this team slipped up. This team, how Portsmouth done? 1-1-0, 1-1-0, 1-1-0. Oh, they were 1-0 down, but they won 2-1, 2 late goals. They just seem to have something really good about them this year. Yeah. And I really, really rate Kenny Jackett. I think he's so underrated. He's succeeded everywhere he's gone. So I think Portsmouth will be right up there. Peterborough, I really fancy it to drop off. And actually, there's some good blogs out there about League One and sort of the numbers and stuff. In Peterborough have massively
it's their expected goals and stuff,
overperformed. And I think actually you saw that when they came to the stadium. Like, they've got some talented individual players, but overall they give up an awful lot. So I do fancy Peterborough to drop away.
I just feel like Sunderland when it comes to 46 games, I think we've got more about us than the majority of the teams, if not all of them. And I think we're 13, 14 games in now.
Yeah. 12. I think we maybe played 12.
Every team's got a bad
13, 26 from 13.
Yeah.
Oh, is that it? Oh, we played one less than everyone else played 14.
Yeah. Every team's got a bad run in them. I don't feel that about Sunderland.
No, I don't think we'll get beat. I can't see we're getting beat.
I can't see them going on a run for 4 or 5 games where they don't win a game, just because I think the individual quality is so good. So I really struggle to see us going through that period where they go for a while without winning. And look, at the end of the day, Sunderland at the moment are going 2 points a game. If you do that for the whole season, you'll go up.
Yeah.
If you look every single season, if you get 92 points, you'll go up automatically.
There's only that season it's been close, hasn't it?
And I still think Sunderland haven't had, they had a good start to the season, but they haven't had that run of 6 or 7 games where they win 5. And I think they will do that at some point.
Could be in the midst of it now,
Yeah.
So there's two wins away from home, another one tomorrow night, and then you're looking at Southend one playing 2 great, and then who's to come after that? I don't think
Plymouth
who are bottom. We did a piece on the site last week. It was projecting the next 5 games before obviously the weekend, and basically we have now we've got 4 games where you're looking at it and you think that's where you've got to go on a run now, because then we have a run of horrible fixtures where we're like playing teams all up there with us.
We've got a game against Blackpool coming up at some point. I don't know when that's being rearranged for. Is there any news on that?
Well, they haven't been able to rearrange it yet because there's still a few things like FA Cup replays potentially. So I don't think there's a.
It's probably going to end up being that the fixtures will end up being sort of like reversed. We'll probably play Blackpool at home after we've played them away.
Well, not necessarily. It may be actually that it's just organised on very short notice. So like Phil says, if because obviously that by the time people are listening to this, Sunderland's draw will have been made, won't it, for the
Probably,
FA Cup? But it might be a case of where that game gets played and then they're like, right, we have a window to play this now because neither team's got a replay or something like that.
Quick one here, we've touched on it a few times, but I'll tackle it again. Do you think we'll need to reopen the Premier Concourse for any games this season? And I think Bradford seems to be the one.
Well, last time Stuart Donald was here, he mentioned that, didn't he? He said they're looking at the Bradford game as maybe the first time to reopen the
And Bradford,
concourse.
to be fair to them, could probably take 4 or 5, so you could probably extend their away end a little bit. You probably could get 40 plus for that game.
It's interesting, isn't it, to see how many people do come back, because I mean, even when we were playing really bad in the Premier League, there was still 41,000 turning up.
Yeah.
But obviously, then we came to learn that the club had put an end to 6,000 or 7,000 corporate tickets going out for free every game. So that you can knock that off your total straight away. But I think if the team are up there, second, third place come Christmas, there's no reason why you can't open that top tier.
What kind of attendances were you getting under Roy Keane when they went up? Because in my head, they were still only
they weren't
early 30s.
Yeah.
So that kind of suggests that you've got a kind of a core support that you get to, and then maybe you have to.
And that was 11 years ago as well.
Yeah, I mean, you don't know how much the support's grown. I mean, they've spent 11 years in the Premier League, so more people might have been going. More attendances seem to jump up from 07, 08 to.
Well, probably because they were giving out 6,000-7,000 corporate tickets every home game.
Yeah, I suppose.
I mean, I know people who just won't go to a game. It's just that's a habit they've come out of. You know what I mean? So, the ones they want to win back are those people, and you would like to think around Christmas that's the time you'll get them. You know, the half-season tickets and stuff.
Michael Bowers has a question. Ross did talk about this in his press conference today, but you got any idea where the club are at with Madja, Gooch, Honeyman, Mumba, Hume with contracts?
Not a huge.
Is it a worry?
No, is it a worry? Well, obviously yes. Is the simple answer, isn't it? Because these players will be free to speak to other clubs in about 6 weeks' time, and the fees you get from tribunals are rubbish, and that's, you can look at the history on that. In the same way, I'm not particularly worried because none of these players agitated for a move in the summer. And if they weren't really eager to leave in the summer, why on earth would they be really eager to leave now? Because the club's going in a good direction and getting regular football. Josh Madge is a really ambitious young man, but he's also one of the smartest and most level-headed footballers I've ever come across. And that's across the board, by the way, not just for a 19-year-old. Really, really, really impressive. Has a really good relationship with Jack Ross. I think is smart enough to recognise that there aren't many 19-year-olds getting as much football as he is. And I think he's happy, and I think he's probably looking at thinking, well, this time next year, I'll be playing regular football in the Championship potentially, and how many other clubs are going to offer him the opportunity to do that?
Yeah.
You could go to a big club, and then you might get loaned out to a Championship team, but then you're not their player, so it's quite easy to drop out the team. So I'm fairly confident that they've got a really good opportunity to tie these players down. As I said, they all get on really well with the manager they're all playing, and if they didn't want to agitate for a move in the summer, I don't see why they would want to now, a few months down the line, when things are looking good. It obviously is a worry, of course it is, but I'm fairly confident.
I'd be interested to find out why we haven't gotten tied up yet.
Don't know. Ross,
it's not really been explained, has it?
Ross said today that they'd been that they're in talks with them. There's dialogue, and that's as far as he knows.
I think that's the line we've been told quite a lot for a couple of months now. There's obviously some reason why it's not happened yet. Is it the players? I don't know. Is it?
Well,
I don't know.
Kind of moves us on to the next question about the fact that Ndong and Dillaboji have gone. That means that 80 grand, something around that's come off the wage bill. So would that not make sense? Is that not the kind of money that could go back into?
I think it does. I think it does make a difference in terms of offering new contracts. Definitely. I mean, I think one of the issues. I think people are very aware that there's been a few issues with staying under the wage limits over the summer, and that the EFL have been pretty on Sunderland right from day one, really, since the takeover went through. And I think there was a bit of a panic's the wrong word, but not getting rid of Ndong and Dillaboji was a big blow, because when Sunderland and Stuart Donald had drawn up their initial budgets, whatever, and their business plans, it was almost like, oh, well, those two will definitely be gone. Mm-hmm. We can write that money off because there's no way they're still going to be here come. And then they were all of a sudden, and that's a massive commitment. I know they weren't being paid because they weren't here, but it was a big kind of cloud. And I think ultimately, I think the EFL as well, and I think the club recognise that it's good business sense to commit some money to these guys, because how much would it cost to replace Josh Madge's contributions this season and Linda Gooch's goals and assists? So it obviously makes good business sense. The simple answer as to why it's taken so long, I don't really know. Obviously, Madge and Soro were offered contracts towards the end of last season, but then overnight everything changed. It is a concern, of course it is, but I do think there's a genuine appetite for the players to stay, and I think you can't underestimate the work the manager's done to get these guys to see a really bright future at Sunderland. So I'm very hopeful.
Do you think we're more worried because we're not used to being in League One, and generally in League One, I imagine players sign contracts in March, April, May.
The thing is as well, though, although, yeah, I mean, we can see that the club probably do want to keep these players, but at the same time, we're now at a level where your best players are ripe for picking on, and at the same time as well, the owners have probably they're gonna see offers for players in January that are going to tempt them. I mean, you can have no doubt that teams are watching Josh Madge. He's 19-year-old
9 goals
top scorer in League One. I mean, he was on the books of Manchester City not that long ago.
Well, I was thinking, look how much money Mo Isa went for, and he was scoring goals in League Two for Cheltenham, I think.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, Madge, I think, is actually younger, same age.
Younger and scoring at a higher level.
So, I mean, if Mo Isa's worth, what was it, 3 million in the end he went for? Something like 2.5 million.
Yeah, it was quite a lot, yeah.
You know, what's Madge worth?
Well, that's it, isn't it? They're going to look at it and consider offers, I would imagine, but then probably look at how valuable he is to the squad.
Yeah.
So that might be why it's delayed, you know, just things aren't as quick as we'd like them to be.
We've got a one here about Celtic. Brendan Rodgers linked to a few jobs. Is Jack Ross likely to be approached by Celtic? Is that something that's going to happen, or
not yet?
Not yet.
Give it a couple of years, maybe, aye. But
that's a job he could definitely do in the future.
Yeah. Well, I think Nick Barnes was talking about Scotland job, wasn't he? Saying that was. Well,
I think that's
dream.
where Jack Ross sees himself eventually, is managing his country. He's got ambitions to do that, because I don't think he ever played for Scotland, did he? And it's a massive job that nobody's been able to get a handle of for years and years and years and years. And he probably does look at it and think, I could do that, and I could leave me stamp. But not yet. He's just starting out, isn't he? Really, he's still a baby in terms of management. It's
just the worry is in case. I mean, if we're sitting here in January, Sunderland are top of League One, Jack Ross is the dog's bollocks, and then Celtic.
Oh, but just like the players, he's going to be. He's going to be. There are going to be people sniffing around him. Obviously,
I don't think that would happen this year, because I think people would. I think what would count against him. I mean, we obviously know how much work he's had to do here, but I think people would look at it and say, "Yeah, but." Biggest budget. Yeah. He's got like Cattermole in midfield.
Academy Elite, etc.
If we were sitting here next year and we're in the playoff places in the Championship or pushing, then I think suddenly people would really start to.
But then he's not likely to go.
But then he might not want to go.
Yeah.
Because where else would he get that opportunity? So that's one thing. Madge, I'm a little bit worried about. Jack Ross, absolutely not.
The only thing with managers, you flavour of the month for like.
I know.
You know what I mean? Like, look at Hurst. I mean, he was tipped to come here, wasn't he? And he went to Ipswich. Funny, actually, that Ipswich were the other club in for Jack Ross, weren't they?
Well, it's mad because it wouldn't have taken a huge change in circumstances at all for Jack Ross to have gone to Ipswich and Paul Hurst to come here. In fact, I don't doubt for a second that had Jack Ross ended up at Ipswich, Paul Hurst would have got this job, I think. And that it was, when you think about it, that's actually like really interesting, because you look at the players Paul Hurst stayed into Ipswich, most of them are League One players. So you probably think, he would have probably about the same players who would have come in here. And you look at it and he's struggling at Ipswich, and you think, how would Jack Ross have done at Ipswich? Would he have found it difficult? It's one of those things. Ultimately, it didn't happen, so it's completely pointless. But it's just interesting.
Podcast for another day.
Yeah. But it just shows you though that Paul Hurst was the number one name on everyone's lips at one point, and now he's looking over his shoulder a little bit. So that window of opportunity might, if a big opportunity presents itself to Jack Ross, you never know, because I think a lot of what happens beyond this season hinges on promotion, doesn't it? I mean, we don't go up this year. Anybody worth anything to the club's going to be going to be looking for other opportunities, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're probably right.
So, but obviously that's looking very far ahead.
Right. Final sort of 10 minutes here. I want to try and keep it under an hour for a change. We never normally do that. Game on Tuesday against Doncaster, game on Saturday against Southend. So include the Shrewsbury game, 3 games in 7 days. Jack Ross likely to do any tinkering, do you think? I mean, it didn't sound like it today in his press conference, but
I think I wouldn't be surprised if Madge is on the bench tomorrow. Obviously, he hasn't trained today. And I think with Gooch playing so well on Saturday, I think it might be a really good opportunity just to rest Madge's ankle a little bit, because he's obviously been playing through that.
So how do you think he's going to line that front four?
Move Maguire into number 10 role and just play Gooch out wide?
Do you think he's not possibly going to drop McGeady, play Honeyman?
That was my. That was my thinking, mainly because against another top team, I don't know if we can get away with playing just the 2 in the centre. Honeyman
can drop.
Yeah, away from home as well. I just feel like that's a pretty straightforward.
I think you could well do that. You could play a midfield kind of 3 of Cattermole, Honeyman, McGeoch, and then your front 3 of Maguire, Gooch, Sinclair, which, as we've seen earlier in the season, would be very fluid, and Maguire and Gooch could switch around and what have you. So I could definitely see him going that way.
And then you've also got McGeady. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. McGeady, though, would be the one who's coming on the bench on 60 minutes if the game's at 0-0, and that's a perfectly
You've got to
good
think
option
as well. McGeady's played quite a lot of football, actually, hasn't he? He's,
considering he didn't have any pre-season whatsoever, he's played a lot of minutes. He's obviously a player who doesn't really need a massive amount of physical work to go and do what he does.
But it's the large number of games over a short spell. All of a sudden, I don't know whether I think he might just make a couple of changes with Saturday in mind as well. Also, just looking at what went well on Saturday, bringing Honeyman and Gooch in, I can see him doing that. Like Phil says, Madjab being dropped probably makes sense. I think we've got to protect him a little bit. If he is injured, rested, yeah. He doesn't have to start tomorrow, does he? I mean, that shows how well we're playing. Although he's our top scorer, I don't think he has to play from the start.
And it's an option off the. I mean, for a fact that if the game's at 0-0 and Doncaster, 60 minutes in, are looking and saying, right, they've got Madja, they've got McGeady, they've got Luke O'Nien. There's 3 players there that we know will change the game. That's going to play into their thinking as well. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised tomorrow if it's similar, or tonight, I suppose, if you're listening, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was similar to Saturday in the sense that we don't go into half time 0-0. I think that might almost be the aim, is to just not concede, just keep it tight, nothing too risky, and then second half make the difference with your substitutions.
It's going to be an interesting game because they score as freely as we do.
They're 3-3 at the weekend.
So it should be interesting.
Did you see the stats from that game?
32 shots to 3.
Gillingham had 3 shots and scored 3 goals.
It's Tommy Hughes.
Right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
But I think Gillingham
had 32 shots and Gillingham had 3 and finished 3.
Gillingham were 2-0 up, and then Doncaster brought back 2-2, and then they conceded in the 89th minute. Gillingham scored in the 89th minute, and then Doncaster scored in the 97th or something.
Yeah, it just shows hopefully it's going to be an entertaining game. Obviously, I'd like Sunderland to pick up 3 points as routinely as they possibly can, but I think if anything, it shows that both teams are good going forward, and that's why I would probably play Honeyman, because I just don't know if we can get away with playing 2 in the middle against a side who they actually do keep it on the deck as well. They're a good passing team.
We've not really came up against one of them yet.
I don't know. Who was it?
Burton are reasonably
Burton played
tidy.
quite well against us.
Yeah.
I actually thought Luton played really good football, kept on the deck. They had that little midfield diamond. They haven't really done all that much, but I still think they're the team I've been most impressed with in terms of one the Sunderland have actually faced.
Well, before the season, they were the team everyone was tipping to go straight up, weren't they?
No, they were like the dark horse, weren't they?
Well, I remember not the top 20 pod. I think they had them as the champions.
No, really?
Yeah,
I thought that.
And Sunderland going up as playoff winners.
Yeah, they had us.
A lot of teams have, to be honest, where we haven't been top of the league yet, have we? We've been third, fourth,
we started 12:30 on the Saturday.
Oh, yeah,
we were top for about 2 hours, and I'll remember it.
We've generally hung around just outside the top 2. And that's why tomorrow's a big game, because you win that, you could go second, depending on how Portsmouth result goes. You could be creating a little bit of pressure going in, like say that spell after the next 4 games. We do have a run of tough games against sides in the playoffs, but we can only go one game at a time. I think the Doncaster game is, to this point, probably the most important game of the season, because that'll be a test of where we're at, I think. Although beating Shrewsbury in routine fashion is nice, you have to be able to go to places like Doncaster against teams who are challenging with you, and you have to be able to prove a point. Say like Sunderland are the team to beat.
If we're at 0-0 in 80 minutes tomorrow, is Jack Ross going for the winner, or is he settling for the point?
Going for the winner.
He's going for the winner. I don't even think that's just. I think that's just the makeup as he is as a manager.
Yeah.
And there's numerous occasions. I can't remember what the game was. Yeah, the Peterborough game, where I know he was considering bringing Oztech on to kind of shepherd it out in the last few minutes, and I think just decided he didn't want to go down that route. He's always someone who will only make a defensive substitution as an absolute last resort. We saw that at Bradford. He did bring Oztech on, but that was a slightly different situation. I think he's someone who will always, no matter what club he's at, he will always go for the positive option. I think he's a manager. If it's 0-0 after 80 minutes, we'll see it as, oh, hang on, this is a great chance to get a massive win rather than the other way around.
That attitude pervades through the squad as well. The players, you can see them with 20 minutes to go picking their levels up nearly every game. It should be an interesting match, because it's just going to be nice to see us duke it out with another team who like to go for it.
And that kind of game, those are, with Sunderland, you kind of think, all right, if Doncaster are going to play it on the floor and play a nice open game, great. That's exactly where Sunderland and the Jack Ross team are going to get the most joy. So in that sense, it's quite an exciting prospect, and also I think it'll suit us as well. And we saw that Peterborough was the classic example. We were looking at that thinking, actually, I think it's going to suit us to be in that kind of game, and it did. They would have won if it wasn't for a moment of stupidity. They would have comfortably won that game.
When is Oviedo back?
Saturday. This is his last one, isn't it? Tomorrow. Doncaster's his last one.
Bradford, so he had a 3-game ban.
He's not getting back in the team, though, I don't think.
Yeah, he probably fit on the bench, won't he?
Obviously it depends how Reece James plays at Doncaster, but I don't think you could possibly drop him from what he's done so far. I think that would send out a terrible message, really, because he's come into the team and he's not made a mistake. Well,
he did, didn't he? He dropped Denver Hume for one game. Denver Hume had like 2 really good games. He played well against Stoke in the Checker Trade, and then in the league, was it the Burton game?
The Burton game.
Yeah.
He wouldn't do that again.
No.
I think he hinted that Hume came back in for
Oviedo the week after.
Yeah. I can't remember.
So he dropped Hume.
But he basically admitted in the game after that, he kind of said...
Is Hume back in for the Rochdale game, maybe?
Possibly.
I can't remember, but he dropped...
I think you're right.
He played,
and then he got injured against
He was basically man the match, 2 games running. He dropped him and everyone was like, oh. And then Oviedo had a really crap game against Burton, where he was at fault for the first goal and just missing for the rest of the game. And then he brought Hume back in after that.
Yeah, I think after that game, he didn't say I got it wrong, but in not so many words. But yeah, so I think Oviedo will have to fight to get his place back, and that's how it should be, really.
In terms of a return, 2 games before we next record, so how many points should Sunderland be looking for? I think they've done themselves a favour by getting the 3 on Saturday, which means they can maybe afford to drop 2.
A point tomorrow would be an okay result. That's by any measurement. If you go away to a team scoring loads of goals at home and pushing for the playoffs, if you go away and get a point, I don't think you can, in any league, in any circumstance, I don't think you can see that anything other than a decent result.
Especially considering Saturday, they will be looking at that and going, yeah, we need to win. Home game against a team not doing too great. But again, like I said before, I think if you're going for promotion, doesn't matter who you play, you've got to try and win, and I think we will. So if we do come away with a point, then whatever. But I think we'll go there and we'll try and take all 3, and we'll put a team out which is there to win. It might be more like the Shrewsbury game, where for the first hour or so you don't see the best version of Sunderland, and then maybe later in the game coming to our own.
Yeah, I think I would take 4, but I really want the 6. Like, I think they would need to start putting our stamp, and I think getting 4 straight wins would be exactly that. And then who was the game after that? Plymouth, yeah. Bottom of the league. So yeah. you can start building a little bit. You could be looking at 6 straight wins once you play the home game after that. So.
No, but that's the type of run you need to go on if you're going to win the league.
I always look at the season and say, if you split it into say like 4 blocks, and in 3 of those blocks you're fairly consistent, you pick up a couple of points a game, like Sunderland have in the first block, and then you have 1 block where you're really, really, really good, you will go up, you will get promoted. So if Sunderland can just keep chipping away, keep picking up results, and have one stage of the season where they have a real run, like Portsmouth have to start with, then you'll go up.
Yeah. All right, cool. I think we're all done here. Podcast on Thursday, I presume. Graham doing one.
I think so, yeah. We're
Yeah.
just trying to sort of guess, but yeah.
Yeah.
Should be good.
And then we've got a few other exciting podcasts lined up, but we'll keep that private for now.
We can keep we'll probably tell one of them
Yeah.
since it's a way down the line.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Paul Reed will be coming on the 14th of November.
Yeah, it's about a month away. The Sunderland's Academy,
Yeah.
head of Academy, isn't he?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that'll be interesting
To talk about the Academy and how things run and stuff.
Yeah.
Which would be interesting because so many of them are coming through now and we're seeing players go out on loan and stuff. It'll be interesting to hear what he's got to say about all that because with January round the corner, they're going to be looking at maybe another group of players going out on loan, and that's probably one thing that's been criminally missing over the years recently anyways at Sunderland is it's not really been prioritised getting the lads out.
They've struggled for it now because you look at Honeyman, he's like 23 and he still looks
24 now, but
He had
Yeah,
a
he
month at Gateshead and that's it. I still can't get my head around that.
he
I just
still
think
looks
it's mad.
though. He looks like he's a 20-year-old. Like I feel like the fact
Yeah.
that he's never had them spells out. He's
You could say that about a number of players, couldn't you? Like how Lynn and Gucci only went to Doncaster. He had a couple of games at Gateshead, then spent a few months at Doncaster. Other than that,
he scored a worldie for them actually, didn't he? That's
Yeah,
a
but
recall.
it's mad really that over the years that's not been a priority. So it's good to see that changing. There's Luke Molyneux out, Embleton's out, Stryjek's just had his loan extended today at Eastleigh.
Good.
They love him there. He got Player of the Month, I think. Yeah.
Received a penalty, didn't he? On his
He's saved a
debut?
couple of penalties,
Yeah.
I think. He's having a really good spell. That's what you want to see, don't you? You want to see they're better off doing that than playing for the 23s.
Oh yeah, screw
it's
the
just in a,
Netflix.
and kind of even just like a welfare kind of sense. You want these guys to be looked after if they do leave Sunderland because a lot of them won't make it. That's the top and bottom, like it or not, a lot of them won't make it, and the club have a duty of care really to ensure they're in a decent position to go and continue their careers if they do go and leave Sunderland. And Max might have found it tough to find a club because he'd never played first team football, but now he's gone and proven himself in the National League. Whatever happens at Sunderland, he's given himself a chance of having a career, and
He'll be a
that's
pro
important.
National League.
Do you know him though? It's a shame because he went to Accrington last year in the summer and got injured on his debut. It was the first game of the season, wasn't it? 9 minutes in, got injured. He was the starting goalkeeper, and then the injury kept him out till maybe Christmas time. Accrington went on to win the league. He could have been part of a league-winning team last season, and he wasn't.
And then we might not have thought about getting a new keeper. I mean, yeah.
Oh yeah, it's mad how circumstance changes things like that. It's poor kid really, but at least he's out playing now and
I
doing
think
well.
Kimpy Yoga might get a spell out. I mean, how old is Kimpy Yoga? Is he
17, 18, isn't he?
18.
Yeah, so he could possibly do with a National League.
Well,
role.
you've got to think if where they're better off sitting on our bench or playing somewhere.
I mean, at the moment, you couldn't
Yeah.
let Kimpy go
No.
because he's he would have been the next one off the bench on Saturday. So at the moment, you couldn't let him go. If Watmore
And Wyke, yeah.
settle down at the end of January, they've had a couple of games, then absolutely. But I think we'll see Kimpy back on the pitch fairly soon, to be honest, because he's brings something a little bit different at the
It
moment.
looked
than we
really
thought.
good against Carlisle. I thought the fact he was getting chances was good. That's what you want. I don't mind about him, maybe looking raw in front of goal, but the fact he was able to get in their positions,
I've
That's
watched
what
him
you
a
want.
handful of times for the 23s where he's not played up front, and I kind of just thought that was like token because Madja was usually playing alongside him. Now he's getting a run up front. He looks a good little player. Like he played the 23s played at the Stadium of Light last month against Norwich. I think it was Norwich, and he was like, do you know when you're just watching 23s football and it's so like everything's at the same, and then there's one player who stands out a little bit. That was him that day. He's just got something a bit about him. He puts himself about. He's quite quick. He's very raw, but he looks like he's got something about him, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So I would like to think if he doesn't go out on loan, he'll be a part of the squad and play regularly. But good on him. But to be fair, because he's him and to a lesser extent than Madja, but because of circumstance, he's played a little bit more than they might have wanted him to, and he's took his chance really, hasn't he? So fair play.
Right, well, I think that's us done. So
Yeah.
thanks for listening. Follow Roker Report on all platforms. Follow Rory and follow the Sunderland Echo.
Rory,
Phil. Rory Smith. He's a journalist,
you can
isn't
tell
he?
you've been at work all day.
I didn't sleep
tired.
last night, honestly. I mean, I was out last night and I got about 2 hours sleep. I was absolutely rotten.
I would, but if people probably should follow Rory Smith before they follow me, because it's pretty good.
Yeah, well,
You
follow
got
Phil as well.
Rory,
Follow them
so-
both, why not?
Yeah, follow them both.
Yeah,
why not,
tag
yeah.
Rory Smith in this. There we
We're
go.
on New platforms as well.
Yeah, we're on Spotify, we're on TuneIn Radio. It's my preferred podcast platform, actually.
But Spotify's pretty good now because loads of people keep asking us about that.
Yeah, no, it's good to get on them platforms. We went big time.
We're all over now.
Yeah, all over the place. So yeah, follow Rory and Phil Smith. Follow Gav as well. So yeah, and we'll see you next Sunday for Graham Anderson.
Yes,
I'm also recording a podcast on Saturday, which I'd forgot about until right now, with Rob Mason.
Yeah, there we go. So you've got podcasts
so much happening. Yeah,
that's why you can't remember, Phil.
I don't know when the Rob Mason one will be out. I'm not sure.
Whenever.
Yeah, we'll maybe hold it back for a little bit. I don't know. See what happens. 2 podcasts in 2 days seems a bit much. Then again, people love the Roker Rapport content though, so
love it.
Yeah, so
I'd have one every day if they could.
Okay, well, we'll look forward to that, and thanks for listening.
Bye.